Hello, welcome to my WarGame Red Dragon Let's Play. This is going to be a little different than what you're used to. I'm pretty terrible at this game. You know, I very rarely ever win. I think I've only won 2 games, and the whole purpose of this Let's Play is to just kind of track a brand new player, or what appears to be a brand new player, uh, as I go along and try to reach some kind of a level of mastery. If I ever do, I don't know. This game might just get the better of me. It has so far. Anyway, for this video, just real quick, I'm just going to go over the units and kind of the explanation of the strategy in mind and all that boring shit. So, we have our command here, Danish command, fast, whatever, basic kind of allied APC style. If you're into Warhammer, you've seen a lot of things that look like this. We got our CH-53. This is a massive supply mover. Moves fast for its size. It's got no armor, but this really helps out in the pinch, especially if you have stranded uh, units, which should never really happen anyway. But here we have our wheeled cargo truck. It's the Danish Jupiter. I believe the Jupiter was a German-made or designed truck, but here's the Danish version anyway. It's relatively fast. The real special thing about the Danish version is it's 5 points more expensive or costly, and the supply is pretty decent. Actually, it's I think the largest cargo hold of any wheeled supply vehicle. So this works for my playstyle anyway. This really I like this truck. And then we just have our supply depot. You can skip over that, of course. Uh, it's American for all the consumer grade electronics. Um, There we have our Panzer Grenadier. What to say about these guys? Usually when I start a round, I usually use these guys first because of their vehicle. Their vehicle has a 20mm cannon and missiles that are pretty inaccurate, but uh, it's enough to get a pretty decent defensive line going very early in the game. It moves fast as shit, or at least it seems to. Let me see here. Let's actually check into this. Let's see. Um, and this screen is garbage. I hate the deck builder screen in this one. The first war game was much better than this, and even that was not good. But for some reason, this bothers me. Uh, anyway, here's our Marauder 1A1, and 70 kilometers an hour, and that's off-road speed, 110 kilometers an hour on road. So yes, it's pretty damn fast. It's got a decent fuel store. Anyway, so here we have the M67 Korean missile soldiers. Um, I usually wind up using these guys later on just to hold pieces, deny pieces of the map. I usually never use them in an offensive manner, and maybe I should reconsider that. They're kind of inaccurate, and that's kind of true of many of the missile style vehicles and soldiers in this deck, and it's really something that could use some editing maybe after a few games. Um, Here we have our assault pioneers, Australian. We had to include them. We just had to. So they have a M9 flamethrower, which is pretty old gear, but uh, they're cheap. They're 15 command points or whatever the hell you'd call it. Anyway, um, fantastic price. I only ever use these guys in very specialized situations, and usually the inequality of their gear is made up by a combined arms assault. So they, it's okay. It's okay that they're kind of cheap and shitty. at least in my mind. Here we have our SAS. They're our special forces unit. They have an anti-air, anti-armor, machine gun. But the nice thing is they have good stealth. They have elite training, and they have their Lynx AH-1 with this, machine gun, heavy machine gun. It's not great, but um, you keep some of these transports around if you're able to save a few, and you can move, Marines or Pioneers or whatever around. It kind of opens up more strategy. So and the unit's pretty good. I use them kind of to fly over obstacles. I mean, obviously with the helicopter, like mountains, rivers, whatever, and they kind of just grab and hold parts of the battlefield like way far away from my uh, defensive line, where I believe the enemy might be amassing troops, which makes sense. It's nothing world changing here with the strategy. These are actually the most interesting. Uh, these are the U.S. Marines. They're not the best in my mind. They're not the best. They have good training. They have good stealth, just like our SAS, and I don't know why that is true. I don't agree with that. Um, their M16's pretty okay, pretty all right. Uh, Not very accurate, but um, their heat rockets, their unguided rockets, are terrible. I really dislike them. Accuracy of 30%, poor range. Their light machine gun is pretty all right though. So I don't know. Anyway, the point is, most of the American infantry in this game is kind of poor, and when you consider the scope of this game and the time periods we're talking about, the people will say the AK-47 is a better gun than the M16 or whatever. This was a time for our army. We're talking about conscripts. We're talking about kind of inferior leadership to what the armed forces were used to. We're talking about kind of troops who were not interested in fighting the war. It was a bad year. It was just a bad couple of decades to be in the army. I hate to say it, and I'm not a soldier or anything, and I don't mean disrespect, but I'm sure anyone who's dealt with any of those wars would agree that it was a very strange time for the American armed forces. So um, that's kind of reflected in this game, to where you'll be surprised if you rely on American infantry. A lot of times they'll be beat by their Soviet counterparts, and I'm an American, and I'm saying, hey, what the hell's going on here? Well, uh, we got to consider the time period, I suppose. But anyway, their transport's interesting. It's got frag grenades that comes out of this Mark 19 launcher, which and this is probably the craziest part of this whole fucking game. The grenade launcher can target helicopters while they're in the air, and it has a pretty significant range in doing so, which, I mean, maybe it's happened. I don't know. It seems so crazy to take a grenade launcher and try to shoot a helicopter out of the sky. It just seems like whoever would try to do that would be court-martialed. But maybe maybe it's happened. Somebody's probably got the Medal of Honor for doing so. Anyway, this is good because it's got you know the amphibious quality, basically. It's just really there to flush out the assaults, to kind of use that grenade launcher to provide some close support and push through streams and things like that, small bodies of water. Um, Support vehicles. I'm not going to talk so much about these, except for this in particular. I got our radar, anti-air. We've got our cannon, radar, cannon. And this is one of the other drawbacks of the deck that I'll talk about in a minute. We've got our rocket launcher. This is like a barrage kind of a vehicle. Limited in its use, but it's pretty cheap, and if somebody's playing around with artillery, you start sending this in, Uh, it'll make people kind of pause for a second or at least react to it. And this M106A2 I use for very close artillery support. Like I'll have these literally right at the back of the line, and have them fire basically at their minimum range over like say if there's like a big pocket of cities. As I'm pushing in, I'll start having these guys fire, even though I know there might not be anybody around. I'll have them fire into exit points to keep them contained in the pocket and to keep reinforcements and supplies out of key points. So very rarely do I ever make any kind of a kill with this kind of platform. Anyway, so and the Noah. The Noah is a 3-shot radar anti-air missile that I hardly ever see anybody use because it has a magazine of 3. So you got 3 shots and you're done. So you have to really be careful about the supply, which is what we have the helicopters for, and the trucks with the high numbers and logistics. Um, it's got the longest range out of any radar-guided missile I've seen, I believe, unless that's changed. It's got pretty decent accuracy for the price. I like this. I don't understand why more people don't use it. We got our Abrams and our Leopard basically for the same thing. More defensively because they're so expensive. You can't really risk losing a unit like this, at least in the beginning phases of the game. So these guys I would use to be even back behind the forward line. So in case there is a breakthrough, I can then use these guys in conjunction with my cavalry tanks to retake the area and to hopefully inflict a higher cost damage on the enemy than they inflicted on me. The whole point of this deck is to get them to attack me, and to assume that because I have neglected something, they can rush in. And as soon as they do, and they're starting to get comfortable, I have all these tanks and infantry rushing into the scene to kind of get them while they're disorganized. So that's what those two are for. And here's the cavalry tank, the M24. It's absolutely useless. There's nothing to say about it. There's nothing to say about it other than it's pretty fast, with a road speed of 110. It's pretty slow while not on the road though. So, and again, it's 10 points. It's cheaper than any infantry, and the only use for this tank is to basically be cannon fodder, unfortunately, and to fill out gaps and to make an assault look 4 times the size of what it actually is. And every once in a while you'll get really lucky and one of these guys will do something useful, but they're really just here to take damage. They're just here to flesh out an assault, or they can be useful on counterattacks just by themselves if the enemy has made a really stupid mistake, which hardly ever happens. We have French helicopters for recon pushing, cheap, disposable, and a French recon guns anyway. Very odd looking, very odd looking vehicle. That's why I chose it. I don't even know if it's the best, and honestly, with an accuracy of 30%, it can't be very good. But some of its traveling stats are pretty decent, so we might hang on to this one. I don't know, but this one we're definitely hanging on to. This is the Canadian Scout Jeep, and it's got the best optics. I don't know if it's the best in the entire game, but I do know it's the best on the Allies, I do believe. It has great autonomy, which means that's the distance it can go without refueling. And it's got a low fuel, which is good, which means that basically it can travel 700 kilometers on 85 liters of fuel. So, well, and then you can double that number. You can take this to 1400, but you can't make the trip back. That's what that means. That's as far as you can go away from a supply source without running out of fuel. So this is awesome, except for the stealth. Here we have our sole vehicle, the Centurion, which acts like a tank. I use this as kind of, how do I explain this? I usually don't wind up purchasing this, and maybe I should replace this with something else. I don't know. It has come in handy a few times though, especially when people are digging in and like with sappers and digging in with just really obnoxious infantry. I've used this before as kind of extremely close artillery support, but um, I don't know. That might change. That might change. I do like this tank though. I like the idea of it. Its cannon, its main gun acts more like a artillery round than it really does a tank round, and the accuracy, although not very good, it's kind of the what would you call that? The area of effect, the grouping of the shots are tighter than they would be from a mortar. I've I've found anyway. So I don't know. That might leave us. Have our Apache. This I have more for the missiles. They have very long range, very high accuracy, pretty stable, and high armor piercing power. So one shot weapon basically on most armored targets with a reload time of 1 second. Anyway, I use this as a harassment unit. This is like my, if this was the Revolutionary War, this would be my guy up in the tree shooting at the generals and stuff. This is, the Russian anti-air and anti, um, attack helicopters and things of that nature. They're ridiculous. They're extremely powerful, and you know that was part of Russia's whole army doctrine, very helicopter focused, very armored focused. So um, it makes sense not to use this as an offensive tool completely. It works a lot better defensively as someone's attacking you. You can use this to pick off their better tanks before countercharging with all of our cheap, you know, M24s. Um, it's just it's so goofy to look at that little tank. Um, so here we have a multi-role. Again, I use this in a defensive nature. And we have our A10 Thunderbolt, which is my absolute favorite plane of this period. And we use this offensively. We use this very offensively. And we use it very sparingly because if you look at this price at 140, um, I do think that, yep, I do think it's the most expensive unit in the entire deck. There's no navy. I don't even want to try. I don't even want to mess with that. It is what it is. But um, I've seen this stop uh, so much ridiculous shit. I've seen, you have two of these at once. They can stop an entire attack. One of them can severely cripple any kind of battle plan. It's a great plane to have, and people will bitch about it. People will say, "Oh, nice A10," but fuck them. We know better than that. And that about wraps it up. That about wraps it up. Uh, so just a quick recap. We're using this deck to quickly, cheaply, and effectively take as much of the surrounding area as we can, allowing obvious gaps for the enemy to push into, assuming that it's been overlooked, and then countercharging when the time is right to destabilize the cost values, meaning making them spend more to do less. And once the balance is tipped, I can then countercharge into their territories and hopefully win the game. Um, so there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope me saying assault and countercharge and all that nonsense, I hope that wasn't too much for you, uh, annoyance-wise, but I think it's going to be an interesting Let's Play. We're just going to watch me fail over and over and over again, and we're going to edit this deck, and we're going to have some laughs at some people online, and I am tracing this helicopter with my cursor, and I'm going to go.